What's up, y'all? So I'm making this video to basically explain my journey of waking up to the world and then coming to Christ. But it's really to show how I woke up to stuff like Illuminati, New World Order, and the end times, and why we're in the end times, and what helped me see that really on a, I'm not gonna say a journey on my own, but a journey with God. So, and the reason why I'm making this video is because I can't sleep right now. It's Sabbath, well, day after Sabbath, and I pretty much I slept for a while during the day, so it's kind of hard for me to get some sleep right now. So it's the video right here. I took a couple notes, but the thing is, everything is this was a long time ago. I really started waking up to a lot of this stuff when I was 15. Yeah, probably 15. And it was maybe that's literally 9 years ago. 9 years ago. So it's stuff is just kind of mixed all together, but I'm trying to make it as in order as possible. But a lot of stuff probably overlapped too, stuff was going on all at the same time. But anyways, and this is how I understood the Mark of the Beast, which is out right now, which is the Mark of the Beast, right? These are ways that I began to understand that, and I gotta write. No, I don't have to write it down. I remember. But okay, so basically, I'm going off my notes. I'm gonna look right quick. And first, before I do this, I'm gonna pray right quick. Lord, please forgive me for my sins. Help me to follow your will. Thank you for everything you've done for me. And God, please bless me to be able to remember the things in the best of order that I can, God. And to not skip anything important. And keep this message protected and under wraps, and to whoever it is for to hear, Lord, may they hear. And whoever it is for them not to hear, Lord, may they not hear. May they click away and not understand. Thank you, Father. In the name of Jesus. In the name of your Son. In the name of the one who has saved us, Lord. Thank you. Amen. So, first what really happened, with me waking up was I grew up in Christian church, right? And the thing is, I used to say I'm not a Christian. I used to say I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Christian, because it's gotten this term as of now that is oh, you're a Christian, so you're brainwashed, but that couldn't be any further from the truth. It's just, but it's the thing is though, is this right here, listen, is that there's a religious spirit, and I didn't want to be termed as religious because I knew that I seek to comprehend so much more than just the basis of what is American Christianity, of just go to church and go out and live your life however you want. And anyways, I literally went to my mom. I told her, I said, Mom, I don't know if I believe in God. I don't think I believe in God anymore. I told my mom, I said, I don't think I believe in God anymore. And the reason why I went and told her that is, and I was surprised that she wasn't upset. I was kind of slow to say it because I was surprised that she wasn't upset, because I thought she was going to get mad. But she was okay, hey, she didn't even really bat an eye at it, And I was well, I continued to explain. I was I just want to go on my own journey. And I feel I kind of was in a process of rejecting what had been always told to me, because of the fact that I wanted to go out and understand things for myself, because I had gotten that coin and term, that there's 1,000 religions out there. How do you know that your religion is the right religion? Which I think I was going in the right direction, and I wouldn't take it back for nothing, because of the fact that you are to question your own household, the things, even this is for if you're Buddhist, Hindu, that anything, when you're whatever you believe that you came up under, right? Your parents are not perfect, right? You are to be a better than your household. And the thing is, I just reject it so that way I could go find out and understand things for myself. So that's why, like, I preface this idea of, you know, of turn Christianity and how people perceive it of nowadays. Anyways, I was like, man, like, what about, I was thinking, like, it's unfair for this person. They was raised like this, and they was raised here in this religion, and how what if they don't understand the things, you know, like, how can they come to my God if they've never been told and their household was like this? And I was just trying to stand up for the world, you know, and the people that might not have gotten the same privilege of being raised to some level in the church. It's not like I was like, you know, church boy, you know, all the time in church, but, you know, I was in a Christian household. Anyways, I had went to church, and the pastor had spoke on I believe it was King Solomon that asked for wisdom instead of riches. So he was kind of asked, like, hey, what do you want in life or whatever? Like, you can have riches, you can have anything. God gave him, like, the choice of, like, having anything, and he chose wisdom, so everything else was added on to him, you know, and it was a blessing unto him. And I believe it was King Solomon, and he received this wisdom. But anyways, this is a real story in the Bible, right? But he chose wisdom instead of riches, and everything else was added. So he kind of chose the right thing. And I'd say, you know, God, and it was kind of like a contradictory prayer. You know, I had been living in a lot of sin and everything, you know, like, my sin was like crazy. My sin life was crazy. But it was a contradictory prayer. It was one of those prayers, like, you know, like, hey, God, I don't really believe in you at this point. I'm kind of like questioning you. But if you are real, give me wisdom to understand how you are real. Because this Adam and Eve story, Noah's Ark, and all these stories seem so, like, they began to seem, as my heart was in sin, it just began to seem like, are these fictional stories, you know? And I didn't have the context to understand how these stories are so true and what makes them possible. So I didn't have these contexts. Anyways, I had rejected everything, and I said, okay, I went on this journey to understand. And when I was entered middle school, it was our teacher made us read this book called the Percy Jackson Lightning Thief book. And I got it really into Greek mythology. I was always into, like, Greek and Roman mythology and stuff like that. So I got into that, you know, reading those books, and I was a reader. Like, so, you know, I actually liked reading good storybooks. So I ended up, you know, reading these Percy Jackson books and stuff, and I read all of them. Like, I got into, like, all of them. And I was just like, you know what? They had always said, like, you know, like, they made fun of, like, you know, where, at least how I grew up, you know, they kind of made fun of, like, the Indian religion and you know, the Chinese religion, of, like, just the fact that, like, back then, like, we looked at the Greek mythology and stuff like this as like, oh, you're worshiping the corn god, you're worshiping the plant god, you're worshiping the shoe god, you know. Like, I'm trying to make examples of basically, like, it was like a god for everything, if you know what I mean. Like, and this is like basic now, because, like, you know, we have, like, higher consciousness understanding as a world paradigm shift. But, like, back then, it was like, oh, this is the corn god, this is the water god, this is the like, it was just like a god for everything. It was like kind of like a joke. But to me, I looked at it as like, yeah, it's funny, but it's like, I refuse to believe, if we've lost some kind of knowledge as a world, that these people were crazy. I refuse to believe that even as the understanding of history as we looked at it back then, that these people were just outright crazy and just came up with a God for everything to answer every question, right? So, anyways, hold on, you gotta silence yourself. I be watching out because people be walking by, they be listening, and they got demons and everything. You know, this is spiritual war, so I'm a little bit alert. But anyways, go ahead and hear, you know, be it backfired in the name of Jesus, whatever plans. But anyways, so yeah, I just refuse to believe that these people was crazy, like these Greek and Roman gods and all that. I'm like, man, these people did not just come up with, like, they were not that crazy. Like, the fact that they could build, and it was pyramids too. I looked at pyramids and like these mathematical things, and they came up with astrology. I was also in astrology of, like, you know, just basic astrology, planets and stuff. Like, I used to like think the world was ours, you know, I want to be a astronaut and all this, and it was all these things. I'm like, man, if they knew all this kind of mathematical stuff, like, then how in the world did they come up with, oh, corn god? Like, no, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I was like, man, like, they were so much smarter than this. How in the world were they so basic with their gods? So, you know, as we understand now, right, like, really demons, right? But see, the thing is of where I came to this conclusion and understanding is, like, I came to a bunch of conclusions as I just sat and pondered, and when I came to these conclusions, I felt like they were so, and this was after asking for wisdom, I felt like they were so possible. Like, I literally came up with conclusions that I eventually went online to search, like, okay, is anybody else thinking in this way? Like, of the fact that, like, these could they be fallen angels? You know, like, I don't know how. I'm telling you, I don't know how. I really, like, a lot of stuff is like, you know, if you ever heard of like the Holy Spirit downloading knowledge into you, I really cannot explain, like, and maybe it's because I can't remember as much, but it was like this. I remember this. It's just that I couldn't explain how I understood just these concepts of what is fallen angels now, you know, and them teaching. Because see, it was like I was learning about, you know, Hephaestus and like these gods, and if you read the Percy Jackson books, you know, how they were teaching man. And I was like, what if spirits really came down and taught man? And so I went online looking up this kind of stuff, but it was like, it was confirmed, it was halfway confirmed in me before I even looked it up. So that's why it was even more powerful when I looked it up, because I was like, I had no idea about this. I'm literally just drawing conclusions out the blue, and it's making you look it up online and it's making sense. And back then, it's like stuff wasn't censored, so you look up a lot of this stuff online now, it's like, bro, a lot of stuff is censored. A lot of them is that they're keeping stuff away. They're keeping the truth away like crazy right now. Like, I go online and look up some of the old stuff, and it's gone, like real life. Like, I've done this before. But anyways, this came into a process of, now you go and you forget things, like, so like you'll be into research and you'll understand things, and when the enemy gets back to your mind and like you get back into sin, you really like put it back on the back burner, you forget things. So I was forgetting things anyways, and that's when I got into, also sometime around the same time, understanding 9/11. 9/11 was a clicking point for me to wake up, and that's a clicking point for a lot of people, especially back then. Like, back then, it was like 9/11, like, that's crazy. Like, just, I mean, it's the most basic conspiracy. If you like are a conspiracist, like, it is the most basic conspiracy of just something wasn't right. That's all it really takes. Is like, in faith, is like, I could give you this proof, that proof, that proof, and This one might not be true. That one might not be true. That one might be a little true. But something is off at the end of the day. And that's really all it takes, is like just to know that something ain't right. So it started off with 9/11. I was like I got all this proof and evidence that, you know, it was an inside job and the president knew about it. And why would all this happen? Like, and it just became too obvious. Like, I preach 9/11 because I'd be like, man, like, come on, like that's your basic wake up. Anyways, 9/11 took me on a rabbit hole to like the Illuminati, and you know, people don't like that word because it's like, it's not the Illuminati, it's Clinton. Like, I don't know why we defend these things. Like, I say nothing comes from nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, something always comes from something, and there's some kind of validity and truth in these things. And that's where I can just be a fundamental understander of the fact that, like, man, people don't just be pulling stuff out the wool, but there's people that just like look at conspiracies like that, like, oh, like, you just read, where'd you read that online? Like, especially back then, like, people was really like on the fact that, like, don't trust the internet. I'm like, they don't want us to use the internet on a test because it has all the answers, right? For like history, etc. But then when, you know, like, that's how I thought back then. I'm like, you can't use it on the you don't want us to use the internet at school, like, to cheat on the test. But when it comes to telling like some deep information, it's like, oh, don't trust the internet. Like, the internet was so like, quote unquote, don't trust it back then. Anyways, I came to like this understanding, you know, I got into the rabbit hole of the Illuminati and stuff like that. And it was still stuff that I was like, still like, nah, I don't know if that's true. Like cloning and stuff like that and reptilians. I always skipped over all that stuff. So I would click on like every video to understand everything. But I would literally cast all that out. I'd be like, nah, that ain't true. Like, now, you know, it's like mind blowing how much is true that we've thrown out. But anyways, got onto that. But at the same time, during this time, I was watching anime. So I grew up on Naruto, like, when it was very first starting. So I used to have to wait for the episode to come out, right? I used to have to wait for the next episode to come out, because it still wasn't out yet. Like, that's when I started on this, right? And Dragon Ball Z was already, like, almost, like, completely developed, at least the first, you know, half of it, whatever. A lot of people are hopping on this bandwagon of all this stuff is because they're trying to push demonism into the world, and of an unconscious world that doesn't understand things, right? Like, all the stuff is getting popular. But I grew up on this anime stuff. So something hit me, and I'm gonna show y'all the video on my phone if it allow me, because I'm not connected to the thing. But anyways, Dragon Ball Z, right? And I'm gonna actually post a video like sometime, perhaps, right? But I plan on doing a video on it anyways, like when God, you know, allows me and I have the tools. But Dragon Ball Z, there's a guy named Mr. Satan, and the thing is, I associated anime as Japanese, right? Like, it's not American. Like, so Dragon Ball Z is like, I think it's Japanese. Like, anyways, it's Asian. It's not American. So I was like, why did they name this guy Mr. Satan? I don't even know how that is in Japanese. Anyways, that just stuck out to me. Then let's come on, Dragon Ball, dragon with the stars on it. Anyways, we could go into symbolism, understanding all this. But it was Mr. Satan that had clicked with me. I'm like, I'm watching, I binge watched all the Dragon Ball Z episodes, and I was seeing this they praising Mr. Satan in the Cell games. If you remember, on the Cell games, I tried to find it on YouTube. I couldn't find it, but I ended up finding another clip somewhere. But if you look at the video, right? They all praising Mr. Satan at the Cell games, right? It just blew my mind. I'm like, just the fact that these are other they're supposed to be worshiping Buddha, you know, and they do put Buddha in the anime and stuff like that. But I'm like, my thoughts were just that, are they applying this Christianity what is like that Christianity, good and evil, into this anime. So I took that, like, as a grain of salt in my back pocket. That just blew my mind. And when they raising their hand and they literally worshiping, if you go and look at in the Cell games, it's called the Cell game saga of, like, whatever. Anyways, that was like something I put in my back pocket. Then on top of that, like, I'm just seeing, like, I'm having all this Illuminati stuff, and like, that's when I realized that the enemy does have this world. And I don't know, like, at what point I connected all the dots from the Greek mythology down to the Illuminati, all the way to the Dragon Ball Z, down to the Satan is ruler of this world. Like, somehow all throughout this time of stuff kind of like being happening simultaneously, right? Or me researching and watching simultaneously, it just became very obvious that the enemy, the devil, is Satan. Lucifer, he has some level of serious influence over not just American Christianity, but also like all the demonic stuff that we literally, Demon Slayer, that we literally see in these animes and stuff like that, right? So I'm like, man, like, it just became like, this is your eyes opening to just the fact that, not that you don't already see it, but that there's something so much more sinister going on, and that there's some kind of wrestling for your mind. And that's when I was like, you know what? The enemy has control over this world. The devil has some level of influence over this world, like, outside of God's ultimate authority, right? So anyways, I connected all these dots, just connecting together, right? And then I went to somebody very, very close to me, and I said, hey, look, I'm getting all this, and my dad, by the way, he was a Freemason, but he didn't pay his tithes and stuff like that. Like, you gotta pay in, you gotta do certain stuff. Like, he just was like low level basis of such things. And I asked him a few questions too. He gave me some kind of like, slight insight and stuff like that. Anyways, man, I went to somebody very close to me, and they showed me these papers, right? They pulled out these papers, and it was like, and they showed me like how like they was invited to these, like, to what is, now it didn't say the Illuminati, but it was just said it was like a contract of like, you could send these paper back and be in an occult that would give you blessings, give you the world, anything. It said, it had in the description, it's like a 4 or 5 page paper, 2-3 page paper, and it just had like all this things of saying like, you could have whatever you want, like everything. It was like one of those contracts for real. Like, but what made me think that this is real was the fact that, number one, it was kept for years. Number two, what it was explained to me is usually when people send you that kind of stuff, like, you'll get it, on a consistent basis. It was 2 different ones, right? They were of the same thing, but they were sent at years apart. Like, so that's what kind of stuck out to me about that, was just the fact that it basically said the same thing, but they were sent years apart, right? And this person that I know, that I'm speaking of, and I don't want to reveal who it is, they're very spiritually powerful. You can know that they're spiritually powerful. And anyways, it was sent to them, and I looked it up online, of course, and I actually found like a similar type of contract. People saying, I don't even know if you could find it now. I'm not gonna look for it, because I'm just telling you what it was. I know that might sound like, oh, deep, mystical. It's just some papers, like, for real. I don't know if it's real or not. If somebody literally just was home typing and was like, I'm gonna send this to like 100 people and like just for fun because I have nothing better to do in life. I don't know. All I know is I seen the papers. And this was just a little bit more confirmation to me, because it takes more than just, it takes multiple confirmations sometimes to get the same understanding. Like Illuminati to me didn't just come because, oh, I heard there's Illuminati, somebody told me there's Illuminati is real, now I believe it. It took confirmation on confirmation on confirmation, learning, and things standing out and pointing out of what you've learned for it to truly eternalize. You know, like I had multiple it factors. You need an it factor, and 9/11 was the biggest it factor right there. Like that right there was just like that's all it took for me. And the thing is like, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times. Like it really only takes me 2 times, but one time, one big time, it's a wrap. And 9/11 was that wrap for me, because I'm like, how you kill thousands? Like, how do we even allow that? Like, how? Like, I'm a life person. Like, yo, like, I'm really like, I really care about people. You know what I'm saying? So the fact that like our own government would, in some kind of way, that George Bush, like, or whoever could have known somebody did not stand up, not one person stand up and get on media and be able to say like, hey, this was completely fake, like, or not fake, but like there's something going on here. There of course was those whistleblowers, but why do we not as a world truly believe this collectively? You know what I'm saying? Like, why isn't this like front line? We know this, right? So I'm like, you know, there's some kind of silencing going on. And on top of that, if you watch Forrest Gump stood out to me too. Is like the whole idea of the Vietnam War. Obviously, I wasn't back then. I'm not going to claim to know what was going on and stuff. But if you remember, on Forrest Gump, they turned off his mic when he was about to say stuff about the Vietnam War. And that just, that stood out to me. And it was like, that was one of the it factors, right? It's like little tiny it factors that just make me say, they're silencing people. There's something at work here. And of course, me being spiritually minded and understanding, you know, at this point that the world is ran and governed by principalities and spirits, I'm like, this is so much deeper than just the man, you know? And it is the quote unquote the man. Somebody is silencing, just like, you know, right now you can't even say the word the Vicky. You can't like these things of being silenced, right? Like fake news, and it's gotta be right. And if it's false news, quote unquote false news, it's gotta be censored and taken down, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm hearing this, right? And it's just like, man, like I don't like the silence. Like, that's wild to me. Just, and this is where I'm like, where do we stand up as a people? I know so many people standing up and they're just really silencing them, but I'm like, do you really want to be sleep that bad? Like, I'm afraid to, my biggest fear is fear itself. So I'm gonna face my fears, because like, I'm just like, man, like, do y'all really want to be that sleep? Like, to like at least be like, I don't know, maybe 9/11, like, man, you done heard it too many times. But anyways, 9/11 just was that big whistleblower, and a bunch of other it factors progressed, right? Dragon Ball Z, it's got what you call Majin Buu. If you know about Majin Buu, the little pink thing on Dragon Ball Z, right? Pink monster. He had an M on people's forehead and would control them, you know, like they could be controlled by Babidi or whatever. And I'm not gonna get into explaining everything, but anyways, they could be controlled by a witch doctor, right? Putting this M mark on their forehead, right? Could control people. And what got me with that was like M for mark of the beast, and they say that the mark, I already knew, you know, of like from like readings or just people telling me, really, I never read the revelation, but people telling me, like, it goes on your forehead and on your right hand, or on your hand or whatever. Ideally, right? Like, it's a spiritual mark right now. It's the mark of the beast, right? And I understand. I have way further spiritual understanding to understand that it's a spiritual marking, right? And you have your chakras and all this kind of stuff. Anyways, like, it gets deep, to those who are not learned by now. Hey, the knowledge is leaving you behind because you didn't even want to accept the basics. But back when they were basic. But that M right there, just on the forehead, and this control, and the fact that it brought out your inner demons, and it utilized your inner evils and stuff like that in order to basically control you, like all that stuff. And then you got like that whole saga was just mind blowing. You got like this devilish looking guy. I forgot his name. I think it's like Deborah. I don't know what his name was. You had all these symbolism in Dragon Ball Z, as it is like obviously created by like those powers that be, in order to push an agenda, just like these Family Guy, Simpsons, and all that. It's called predictive programming, right? So all this like predictive programming I'm seeing in these things, I'm like, yo, this is crazy. But that mark right, that right there was like brought me to this understanding of like, okay, so they hail Satan. They talking about some hail Satan on Dragon Ball Z. They got this mark concept and all this. What was mind blowing is not that it was in the TV, but that this is supposed to be Japanese. And that's when I realized this is a world takeover. That's when I realized that let's take it out of spiritual context and just understand that these human beings, quote unquote human beings, right, are literally in some kind of work together, right? And the thing is about why do you join like a Freemason or an Illuminati, right? Is because you have connections all around the world. It's not like this is just an American thing, This is an all around the world connection. So you have connections with people all around the world. So higher powers are obviously going to have connections together, and they're all going to push the same agenda because, a house divided cannot stand. So they're pushing all the same things. And I'm just seeing this in Japanese stuff. And that's what was the catcher. So then after I got to all that, right, and I'm putting all this stuff together, and it's coming all at the same time, like, that's when I realized that I'm seeing so much evil. And this was what got me to believing in God, after I had already said, like, hey, I'm not gonna believe, I'm pushing away my faith right now. Like, I'm wiping my slate clean. I literally said that. I'm like wiping my slate clean. I don't believe in nothing right now. I said I was an atheist. I wasn't no atheist, but I'm like, I don't believe in nothing. I'm finna just find out everything all new. What I saw so much of the devil in all of our, if you look, we got demons in everything now. Like, Demon Slayer, they call it Demon Slayer, man. Like, it's evil in everything. I saw so much evil in everything, but it was directly tied to the devil. Like, it wasn't no, like, it was just so directly attached to the devil that I was like, you know what? If the devil is so very real and apparent, there's gotta be some kind of force fighting against this. And this is why. It's because of the fact that, and I correlated this to all the way back to what we're gonna say, right? Adam and Eve, is because of this right here. And listen, we must have started off from some level of good, because if the enemy truly had, the devil truly had full ultimate cover of the world, why would we even have any sort of balance of good? Why not just chaos at all? Why not make us all just innately chaotic? Like, why let good win in a movie when from the very beginning, if such an evil force ran it from the beginning, why would they just not make it all evil and let evil win every single time and make good just like the failure? Like, if you notice now, not nowadays, it's kind of changing, but usually the idea is good wins. Good always wins. Light always defeats evil. That's how it used to be, right? Like, they're kind of changing it now, right? As the enemy is getting more territory, leverage, like, allowance by God. But it used to be like, man, like, good wins every time. Like, great movie, good wins. Evil had like this great, they made him look really, really, really cool. But in the end, Naruto's still stronger than Sasuke, right? And I said, basically, we had to have fallen from some kind of good place. And these are just your basic fundamentals to get you to higher grounds, right? You got to have a solid foundation. And that was just it for me. It was like, I've seen the enemy so much. I'm like, man, there's got to be something fighting this right here. And if there's not, we're totally doomed. We are totally doomed if there's nothing fighting all these demons that we're being exposed to. So I gave that benefit of doubt. I said, man, it's got to be something good, and it's got to be equal or greater. And I said to myself too, I said, I'm not going to believe in any God that can't tell me. And that was also one of the starters. I just remembered that. Is like, when I asked for wisdom, I said, I'm not going to believe in any God that can't tell me the future. If you can't tell me the future, how do I know you're God and not just man? And that's what came to me with the Bible. Is a lot of people say in the Bible, they say that that it was written by man. I said, and I took that into consideration. I was like, you know what? It is written by man. But I said too that all these other things are written by man as well. We literally read our history books written by man, but yet we trust the history. And the history we know has so many falsifications because they've even said it. Now, even like, and then it came to me with the planets too. It's like, I was in astrology, and then I heard it came to the conclusion that Pluto is not a planet, and this argument over, it's a ball of ice. I don't know the science to it, right? You got your scientists that want to get in the comment section and be all like, no, this is not exactly that. You're wrong on the science here. So everything you're saying, I don't know. All I'm saying is, they said Pluto's not a planet. I'm like, man, didn't y'all do the research on this before you even released it to the world? Then you have Darwinism and all this stuff, and they're like, maybe this part wasn't true. And then you got, we came from monkeys and we evolved. And it's like, okay, maybe, but just like, isn't this written by man too, that can go back and say, well, it was a theory, a very, very strong supported theory, but we're going to change it a little bit now because we've grown in knowledge and comprehension. And the thing is, like, we believe these things of man, yet, they change it all the time. History and consciousness, we're learning things new all the time, and we're upgrading the information. So I'm like, why we attack at the Bible? That was my thing, is like, just because it's written by man. But I said the same thing. I'm like, if it's written by man, I'm like, if this is true, God's got to be able to tell me the past, present, and the future. And that's what hit right there, was the fact that all this anime stuff, if you look, right, it was so telling of the future. And you got Revelation that tells you of the end times, and everything is literally happening right now of what they quote unquote predicted, right? And where did y'all get this information from? Why is all of this stuff good at basic form? At basic form, good and good versus evil, right? Frequencies and vibrations, colorism, going from red Kaioken to yellow Super Saiyan to Super Saiyan blue, to like all these colors, and you look on the frequencies and vibration chart, right? Then you got purple, you know, these ultra ego, right? And then like all these levels, man. Like, I'm like looking at all this stuff like, y'all taking this from the Bible at basic level. Like, y'all is really like mocking the Bible. And it's like, okay, I get it, it's fun, I guess, but why in the world is every show, every movie, The Chosen, we got the, like, every movie is like good versus evil, and then some kind of correlation to the Bible? If you really, like, you have to open your eyes. It's opening your eyes, right? Everything, like, and you have to be able to see it. If you don't see it, then it's like you just don't see it. But it's like you're not really pulling too far from the string, because you're like you're not reaching or anything, because like they say the devil in the thing. They say the devil in it, but and then they have these concepts of angels and demons, and it's like y'all did not, just like I gave the Greeks in Roman God the benefit of the doubt, because back then, like we said, like we looked at like Cupid as like just some imaginary figure, right? And then you look at Cupid really, and it's like how this correlates to baby, love, you know, and it's like it's supposed to be the devil, right? And it's like if you look up, Cupid is really like has connections to Satan, and Hermes has connections to Satan and the messenger, and our like symbolism. I got into symbolism and how, like, you know, our pharmaceuticals has like two snakes wrapped around, like with the angel wings on the side. And like, I don't need to know the depths of things to just realize like it looks like a battle of angels versus demons everywhere. And the only religion that really gives you answers at all is it comes down to like a big five. You know what I'm saying? It comes really down to like a big five, you know, that even give you insight into angels versus demons concept, evil versus good. And these are just basic fundamentals that I could put together to understand that the spiritual war is real. And if anything, Christianity is not only highly mocked nowadays, or always been highly mocked, but, and I mean, I'm not talking about religious Christianity, but I'm talking about following Christ. It's so highly mocked. I'm like, Japanese too. That was a clicker for me. Like, oh, and I watched Hanuman. We had to watch that in class. It's the same thing. You know, the blue guy, like, it's a cartoon. It's pretty cool, like watching in class. Like, we got to get out of doing work. But putting all this stuff together, man, like, there is nothing that gives you, this is a Bible thumping message right here. There's nothing that gives you more answers than the Bible itself. Nothing. And I don't even know if the other religions tell the future as in depth. And that whole M with the Dragon Ball Z, like, it was like, come on now, man. Like, what else talks about the mark of the beast? The M for the mark of the beast, like, and it describes it in the same similar fashion during the same saga of where they're praising the devil. Like, it was just too much. Like, all this stuff just came together all at once. And then, you know, I got into the book of Enoch, understanding how, oh snap, it's fallen angels that actually taught man a bunch of different things, like, you know, in the world and how to do things. And that correlates to Greek and Roman history. So, oh, like, they might have like actually looked at these as gods, but how may they be gods if, you know, it's so many of them? Like, you know, like, can you even keep up, right? Like, and it's just, it's like there's got to be something that governs over it all, because I understood hierarchy, right? Like there's even, you know, if you have co-owners, right, in any business in company, at our basis of fundamentals, you understand everything that is above is as below. So even at your basic levels of organization and structure, there's the highest, and then there's the lowest. Simple, right? There's the boss, and then there's the workers, and then there's the boss's boss, and the boss's boss. I'm like, well, where is their boss? Who is their boss? And that's when it comes to just two, good and evil. Who runs one? God runs one. Yahweh, the Most High, that Christian gospel God, right? And then you got the devil, who's running evil, Satan. Why would you not put your name in everything? He put his name in everything, as he controls to some level and degree of this world. If you look and you have your spiritual eyes open, it's in everything, right? But what really was also groundbreaking for me was seeing the evil, seeing so much of his name written in things that I'm like, man, I've heard this before, that Motel 6 is runs this world, ideally, right? If you pick that up, right? 6 everywhere, just this kind of stuff, man. Like, and it's like, no, if you look up the story of how this person actually, like, created the business and stuff like that, like, how do you know that that wasn't falsified? But you come for the Bible. Like, how do you know? Didn't that come from man? So everything that you have learned up to date has came from another human being, right? But what blew my mind was that a lot of this stuff was downloaded into my spirit, of stuff that I didn't even give thought to and was incapable of, let alone at like 15. And 15 is nothing now. 15-year-olds are really smart now, but back then, like, you know, like 9 years ago, look how far we've come. Like, go look at a 9-year-old picture of yourself, and you'll look at your style and just realize how far mentally we've came. At 15 back then, it just was not of normalcy for one to be just on this kind of stuff, right? Like, thinking this deeply. I'm not, like, you know, boosting myself up. I'm just saying, like, we really did not, like, have consciousness. Paradigm shifts had not, as many paradigm shifts had not happened back then. So putting all this stuff together, man, it just got down to the fact that, like, eventually I forgot all this stuff once again. I didn't forget it. It was in my back pocket. But I thought, you know, I could break through the matrix in some kind of different way, because I wanted to be like a rapper, and I wanted, you know, to push my clothing line, because I understood symbolism and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know, now I wanna create, I wanna make something pure in this world, because of all the sinister ways that the enemy has infiltrated the things that we so love. So I'm like, but I learned, you know, that God doesn't necessarily need you to get to the top of the mountain and shout out for him, because he can shout out for himself. He just needs you to follow him and do the right thing. But I didn't understand that back then. I'm like, you know, trying to break out of the matrix of, like, and like, I'm realizing, but when I realized how controlled they have it, like, this is not just a system that is like made just, I realize how deep they have this thing under control. They really, like, you want to come up, you want to be famous, you can make some noise, but when you make too much noise, it's just like, it gets to a point. It gets to a point where it's like, it's you or your soul. And then you didn't get to that point. What are you promoting to get to a level of a world that literally feeds off of demonic energy because of how much they love Halloween itself, right? So as trying to be this famous person though, because I wanted to be famous, right? Trying to get to this some odd level, man, you just start to, those it start to come back again and again and again, and it just confirms into you how much this Illuminati is really real and how much control they truly have temporarily until, you know, God. And I'm like, you know how they say, like, well, people just want to believe in God for a hope, right? Like, y'all just want hope. And you look at Star Wars too, like all that kind of stuff. Like, man, like, y'all, the Star Wars took from Anakin was born of the Force and had no father because he was born of the Force. Like, come on now. And then you got Luke Skywalker. The enemy is Prince of Powers of the Air, Skywalker. And you got, man, I'm not even gonna get it. That's a whole video. Like, you know, I can't even think and recollect on how much just these simple things all have to do with the eternal war that we're fighting. And yeah, I'm just trying to, like, it's crazy. And you can tell that it's so much, at least on me, of like how all this stuff really is just jumbled together, all happening at the same time to create one big boom of understanding, especially symbolism too. And all these it's just literally just brought me out of the matrix to now see, yo, like, you gotta really just protect yours. Honestly, protect yours and follow God and follow Christ. And I say Christ, I push Christ, because this Jesus, man, when you say Jesus, man, people run. I like when people run, because, like, you know, you say if I tell somebody, yeah, I worship Hiblu, if I say I worship Hiblu to somebody, they're like, what's Hiblu? Oh, it's just my religion, it's my opinion, you know, and this and that and the third. Well, I think you're kind of weird for that, but you know what, I accept you anyways. Like, you know, Hiblu's not, maybe it does kind of make sense, and I make your own religion and all this stuff. Like, people accept you for that, but what you tell people that you follow Jesus, all of a sudden you're the most crazy, insane person. And it's like, man, I like let them run. I like that. Run. Because it's like your demons obviously are just, they can't accept, you don't want to wrap your mind around the deeper things, man. You don't want to get it, because if you wanted to get it, you'd get it. So it's all those things, man, that you could tell, like I said, it's jumbled up and it's so much. And that's exactly what it is, man. It was all these things happening all bit by bit and overlapping with each other that it just became one big boom of come out the matrix right now. And that's how I got to this point. And now, you know, where in the end times, like, you know, it's always been end times, you know. Dragons, Pride, Dragon Ball Z, you know, like the Fox, you know, Fox being sly, right? You got the Fox spirit within Naruto, you know, nine-tailed fox. 9 is 6, and they're called beast, right? The tailed beast, mark of the beast. And this is supposed to be Japanese stuff. And you got Demon Slayer and real life Demon Slayer right here, right? We got Demon Slayers out here now, right? Real life stuff that we call like, oh, it's a cartoon. Like, somebody was just on one of my posts, right? I'm like, the Bible says the Lord uses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. Like, you could point out every small little detail of this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, but what does the fundamentals say? What does the basics of it say? Right? The basics, man, is just the fact that there's this battle of good and evil, whether people want to accept it or not. I've heard there's no such thing as evil. Man, people come up with the craziest of concepts, and maybe to some depth and level you can explain that there's no such thing as evil. But like, for the sake of basic for the sake of progressive conversation, can we just acknowledge the obvious? And that's the thing, is like, I realize like how delusional people choose to be in order to run from their own spirits, their own demons, and be able to basically, at what they've said, do as thou wilt, which is the whole Satan occultist motto. Do what you want. Lil Uzi Vert, right? He's got he's on demon time, right? We know this, right? Upside down crosses and all that, right? Listen, now I do what I want. Now I do what I want. Now I do as I will. Now I do as I will. Come on, like, it's like, but then like somebody said, oh, everybody says that. Like, everybody is not going to make it. Not everybody is going to get the truth. But it's these basic concepts, man, that just like all this stuff, it took 1,000 it factors for me to truly be like, okay, this book right here holds some weight, because it really makes demons run. And I found that man, they love simplicity, if anything. So they'll call you simple for this book right here, but yet they still looking at some level of Darwinism, aside from like natural selection, as like the end all be all. Like, it's like y'all still looking at Pluto as a planet, for real. And it's like they've already told us that, you know, it might not be. Like I said, I'm not claiming to be any scientist, and that's the thing, is I'm like, I always tell people, I could get it, you can get it, because I'm not like as detailed as I research. Who got time to recollect every starting date and period? And people are like, well, actually, it was written by the time of. You remember every single date that you want to disprove something, but you don't remember the basics that just simply say people could be completely lying to you on that too. What makes you think that Shaka Zulu knows what he's talking about? Like, for real, how do you know? How often? And this is the same thing as too. It's like, even now, how often do you do? And now my faith is strong. So I really don't do it as often. I don't do it as much anymore at all. And I do actually every now and then. It's so rare. But how often do you once again wipe your slate clean and say, everybody could have been lying to me? All the man stuff that I've received that was from man, that people like, oh, the angels, okay, all right, something spiritual and higher than you gave you answers. I'll argue it, but not today. But how often you erase all the things that man has told you and just start over? How often do you do that? Because if you don't, you could be getting a bunch of junk mail, only to get to the end and realize that you knew nothing. He who knows everything knows nothing. So that's where this didn't turn into a preaching session, but that's my journey, man. It really started with 9/11. Like, let's just call it what it is. And that's why we have learned nothing, man. We have learned nothing, because once again, they're running a whole lie scheme on us. And we know, man, I know people that have died from corona. I do. I know, like, the same person that went to my father's funeral, I'm not gonna say his name, passed from corona. That's what they said. He was an older gentleman. But come on now, man. I've had corona. I think, I didn't go get tested, but it was some serious cold. And can we just say that they doing too much? A little bit, right? Because people anyways, once again, we fell for 9/11. They said, this is the beginning of the New World Order with 9/11, man. What does this look like? A new way of life, New World Order. We got A New Legacy, Space Jam, demons, space monsters. Monsters all the time. That's all you see on TV is the idea of monsters. Family Guy said it. Violence in movies and sex on TV. But where are those good old-fashioned values they're telling you on which we used to rely? We used to. I didn't even know, because obviously back then I wasn't around. But allegedly we used to. It used to be different. Allegedly, right? I'll take that, because I even remember a time of further purity, man. I work at the school district, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and what they allow in school, we could not do. We could not listen to certain things, have your speaker out, and just little things, man. Little things that can be done now. 2022, get used to it. All right, fine. It's different, man. It's different. And it's like, are we going in a positive direction or a negative direction? Or is it both? But nonetheless, man, if this negative is getting any bigger, we say all the time, social media is a great thing, but we know that it's messed us up in some kind of way, in fashion, man. But we not gonna do nothing about it, because spirits, you're not wrestling against yourself. Why do you not want to let it go? Is because you're not wrestling yourself. It's spirits that are influencing and in control to some level and degree. You don't have to see them to know that something's going on. And it's too late for these kind of messages right here. I'm not, and somebody might be getting it, but it's like, these kind of messages are dead now, because it's like you either got it back then, or you got a long ways to go to catch up, because you probably already fell for the mark of the beast, because you pushed away and ran from the truth. And don't worry, I know that you ain't even make it to the end of this video. So who am I really talking to? Really just telling y'all, man, my story and my journey. And may the criticism begin. But I tell you what, God's gonna come in the end. You better depend on the hope. You better depend on something, because we will be our own destruction. Because if you stand by and don't do anything, it's just as bad. It's even worse than being on the opposition. And doing something is simply at least speaking out or saying something. But they like to turn off the mic like Forrest Gump. So, man, that's the spiritual war right there. Silencing. Masking. Quiet. So let's wake up. That's my journey, man. It's a lot of jumbled up stuff, but in the end, man, it'll prove Adam and Eve. You just read that book of Enoch and open your mind. So appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching. That's the video.